Welcome and thank you for joining the online Golden Globe Foreign Language Nominee Symposium presented by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association and the American Cinematheque. I'm Gwen Diglis, Deputy Director for the American Cinematheque, and I'd like to invite you to visit our website, americancinematheque.com, where you can find information about our upcoming programs and how to become a member and support the American Cinematheque. This symposium is with filmmakers Thomas Vinterberg, Filippo Meneghetti, Jayro Bustamante, Edoardo Ponti, and Isaac Chang. It is moderated by Silvia Bizio, journalist and member of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Enjoy.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Hi, I'm Silvia Bizio. I'm a member of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and it is my honor to moderate the symposium today with these 5 wonderful filmmakers. So let me start introducing each of them. Jayro Bustamante, director of LLORONA. Jayro is a Guatemalan film director and screenwriter whose 2015 film Ixcanul was selected at the Guatemalan entry for Best Foreign Language Film. La Llorona is his 3rd film, and this year was also selected as the Guatemala entry and shortlisted to the international film category at the Oscars. In the guise of a horror film, La Llorona grapples with the genocide committed against indigenous people in Guatemala under the military dictator Efraín Ríos Montt in the early 80s. Welcome, Jayro.
Gracias.
Buonasera. Where are you, Jayro?
I'm in Guatemala right now.
Well,
yeah, I'm just to live between Paris and Guatemala, and
wonderful.
with baby, I want to be near to the family.
Thank you. Isaac Chang, director of MINARI. Born in Colorado from Korean parents, in his 5th film, Chung draws from childhood memories, growing up as one of the few Korean immigrants in 1980s Arkansas. Stephen Young leads the cast next to well-known Korean actress Yoon Yeon-jeon, I hope I pronounced it correctly,
That's
in the
good.
role
Yeah.
of the endearing and spunky grandmother. Thank you for being with us, Lee. I think you are in Los Angeles, right? You're in.
Yeah, that's correct. It's great to be here with you. Thank you so much. And such an honor to be with all these amazing directors.
Thank you. The very Italian Filippo Meneghetti makes his narrative feature debut with Two of Us, France's selection to the international film category at the Oscar, also shortlisted in that category. Meneghetti wrote and directed this drama about 2 women in a secret relationship who live across the hall from each other. They are interpreted by wonderful Barbara Zukova and Martine Chevalier. Benvenuto, welcome Filippo. I think you are in France right now, right?
Well, yes, I'm in southern France. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor for me to be with all these wonderful filmmakers, which I admire. And yeah, that's wonderful to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Edoardo Ponti, son of prolific Italian producer Carlo Ponti, is directing his legendary mother, Sophia Loren, in the film The Life Ahead, adapted by Ponti and Ugo Chiti from the 1975 novel by French author Romain Gary, La Vie Devant Soi. Sophia Loren is Madame Rosa, a Holocaust survivor who develops a deep relationship with Momo, a 12 years old Senegalese orphan. Welcome, benvenuto Edoardo. You're also in Los Angeles, right?
Yes, ciao Silvia. And I second what Lee and Filippo said. It is truly an honor to be part of such a symposium and to be in the presence of such wonderful, wonderful filmmakers.
Thank you. Danish filmmaker Thomas Vinterberg, founder of Dogma 95 movement with his fellow director Lars von Trier. Vinterberg wrote and directed Another Round, the Danish selection to the International Film Awards at the Oscar, also shortlisted in that category. 4 friends, high school teachers, test the theory that they will improve their lives by maintaining a constant level of alcohol in their blood. The wonderful cast is led by Vinterberg frequent collaborator and friend, Mads Mikkelsen. Welcome, Thomas. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you, Silvia.
Hey, Thomas.
I'm here. I'm in the high north. I'm in Copenhagen. It's a little after 8. And I too, like Ponti and the Isaac and all of them, are overwhelmed by the company of these great directors, I have to say as well.
Thank you. Welcome all. Needless to say, we all wish we were sitting there together at the Egyptian Theater, but we will soon, I trust. So welcome all, and thank you for your beautiful, different, challenging, stimulating, inspiring films. Each of them so original, but each in their own faces issues of social injustice, rebellion to the norms of society, ageism, so many themes to discuss about. So I would like to start asking each one of you, asking how the inspiration for this movie, for your movie, came about and how it fits your filmmaking vision. Maybe I'd like to start with you, Thomas. How did this story come about for you? Obviously, it's a lot more than a story about alcohol and its effects on people. It's a story about the uncontrollable. It's about inspiration. Tell us about it.
You're right about that. It's the word spirit means more than alcohol, but it did start with actually looking at world history and all the great and fantastic achievements having been done by people who are drunk, basically. Then it spiraled from there and became, I guess, a film about being inspired in your life, an attempt to make a life-affirming film, basically, in a time of a very confined and dark world, actually.
That went back for you also to some memories of your youth?
This film is not autobiographical, but if you're talking about some of the drinking rituals with children running around in the streets of Copenhagen, those are quite truthful. These rituals exist out there, and I dare to say that my daughters have participated in some of them.
Jayro, jumping in an extreme opposite with LLORONA about the genocide in Guatemala, why this subject now? You haven't been scared of tackling political issues in your work. Tell us about this film, and why did you choose a horror genre to talk about such issues?
You know, the inspiration for that film is, I want to link it with the inspiration that why I choose being a filmmaker. And I grew up in a Mayan community with a grandma who is Mayan, and I discovered when I was able to speak in Cachuquel with her, she asked me to keep it in secret and use it only in house. And I discovered that being an indigenous people, it was a cause of shame. So I will use a sentence of Rigoberta Menchú, our Nobel Prize, who say that it was the moment that my social conscience was born. And I decided to use my life in a way to fight against discrimination. And in Guatemala, more than 70% of the population are indigenous, and we are discriminated indigenous. And one of the most important insults is Indio, who means indigenous people. And the other one is communist, and we use that insult to treat bad all the people who are defending human rights. So when you understand that we came to a country where being to defend human rights deserve an insult, you can understand that we live a genocide in full impunity.
And in fact, that this film was not very well welcome at the beginning, from what I understand. Right?
No. You know, we start receiving some calls, anonymous calls, to invite us to don't make that film. And I'm really thanks the people who called me to tell me that, because that we decided to shoot the film in the French residency and in the Italian embassy and in the Jewish university to be protected by that institutions. And during the shooting of the film, one of the minister of Guatemala, the minister of international relationship, she tried to stop the shooting. And thanks to the French ambassador, who continued doing the film. And So it was the fact that I decided to make an horror film too, because I knew that in my local audience doesn't want to talk about that. And so I decided to package the message in an horror shape, because people here love horror and superhero films. So to us, La Llorona is a kind of a superhero. So I use her as with all the horror elements and with her the importance of the icon to tell that story.
That's amazing. So it reaches also, that's a way of a wide-reaching audience, right? That's
exactly.
yes.
And right now there is a very nice phenomenon now, because La Llorona made a good way in festivals, and we won some prizes. And the film at the beginning, we were attacked by our people, and right now, because the prizes, Guatemalan people are proud about the film. So it's so funny, you know, when glamour came, the people changed their mind.
That's interesting. Power of art. Lee, Isaac, you said this film, you know, it's autobiographical. Tell us, and I've read the beautiful essay you wrote about writing and how the inspiration of this film came to you in thinking about what you would want to do next. Tell us about that process of being inspired to write this movie.
Sure. I'm glad you read that. I was feeling a little bit embarrassed about it, because I never know how to answer this question. The truth is, I didn't know if I'd be able to make films for much longer, just because I was transitioning into being a professor, and I thought really my career was ending. And I had a few months to write one last screenplay. And so what I did was really, I just sat down and I closed my eyes, and I asked for inspiration, and I heard the words Willa Cather, and I'm not making this up, this really happened. Willa Cather, I didn't know who that is. I looked up, see, every time I talk about this, I think I sound a little nuts, but I went on this.
I was very inspired reading.
I went on this epic journey, I guess, going to the library and trying to figure out who is Willa Cather. I started reading her books. And I came across a quote finally that she wrote, that she felt like her life began when she stopped admiring other writers. She stopped trying to emulate other writers, and instead she turned inwards and started to remember and write about her own experiences. And she grew up in a farm in Nebraska, and I grew up in a farm in Arkansas. And something about that inspired me to sit down and just write out my memories. And that's how this project began. I wrote out about 80 memories. And once I had this big list of memories, I started to see a story take shape. And that was the basis for MINARI. Yeah.
Which you also say that you don't want to identify too much as, you know, the search for the American dream, but a story, a universal story, really, of what it means to be an immigrant and to pursue your goals.
I suppose so. You know, the memories are all based on the age that I was when I was around 5 or 6 years old. And when I was doing that exercise, my daughter was around that age. And I mean, she doesn't sit around and think about the American dream. When I was a kid, I didn't think about the American dream. And it's more the questions of family and relationships and how do we love each other. These were the things that were, I think, more internal and instinctive and more emotional. So that was really the focus of this film.
Edoardo, another, you said you loved the book forever, and you've been thinking about that book and how important it was for you, the Roman Gary book. Tell us about the genesis, in fact, and how did you get to this film?
Yeah, you know, I read the book for the first time when I was 16 years old. So essentially, you know, it's been a 30-year-old dream for me to make this movie. And what struck me then and still strikes me today is two things, really. It's first, it was the story of love and friendship in between these two characters that on the surface, you know, everything separates Madame Rosa and Momo: race, religion, culture, generations, everything, you know. But in the end, you realize that there are two sides of the same coin. You know, they both suffered great loss. They've both been raised, you know, without families. But what defines them isn't that loss, in a sense. What defines them is hope and resilience. And that's where they connect. You know, they're both survivors. That was the first thing that very much inspired me. The second thing was the point of view of the book. Romain Gary tells the story through the point of view of this immigrant child, Momo. And I find that so touching and so important nowadays. You know, we tend to, you know, live in the refuge of our own silos. You know, we are offended when somebody tells us something that doesn't jive exactly with our opinion or exactly what we think, when in fact the only way to learn is to be confronted with something new, with something that doesn't jive exactly what you were thinking about. That's how you grow, that's how you mature. And to be able to tell a story and to be able to see life through the eyes of this young man was something that was very compelling to me. And that's also one of the reasons that I made this movie.
Also a story that obviously is not just about, you know, a town in southern Italy and the stories of, you know, some refugees. It's a global story, and it's that's happening everywhere. And
yeah, you know, it's you know, from the granular, from the details. If the details are authentic, if the details are real, then you immediately touch the vein of the universal. You know, and it was a matter of, you know, telling a story with people, also with a cast that was authentic. You know, Ibra is, you know, who plays Momo, is an immigrant of Italy. He is Muslim. He brought that truth to the movie.
Filippo, this is your first film, quite an impressive debut. You too have a story of how this film goes back to when you were very young, and it was inspired by people you knew and met, and you wanted to bring their story to the screen. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the story of the film is invented. It doesn't, you know, but it is true that in my teenage year, I had two people that were very important to me, since they are the people that pass on to me the passion for cinema. You know, where in the 90s they were lending me over on video cassette of, you know, wonderful films. And basically, I always had this idea that if sooner or later I had the chance to reach an audience, I would have loved to give an homage to that kind of life, since they went to very difficult time at that time, and I was really struck by their stories. And so, but then I was for years looking for the right angle to tell this story, which is a story of self-censorship and exclusion. And then one day I came across, you know, again, I guess we are always kind of hunting for metaphors in our life. And I mean, I was trying to find something that I can film that would talk somehow about what is going on inside the characters. And so I came across a friend of mine had two neighbors, which were two aging women that became widow pretty much at the same time. And they were living like Nina and Madeleine in two apartments, one in front of the other, sharing the landing and to keep each other company. And when I saw that, I'm very curious. So I was visiting him, and I was, you know, hearing sounds coming from the upper floor. And it clicked, and I had this feeling that it could be a very simple and everyday life metaphor to tell the story of self-censorship and exclusion that I had in mind. And then starting from there, you know, we'd been working with my co-writer for 5 years to shape the story.
And how were you able to attract to your story to such wonderful actresses? Your first film, they also took a leap of faith on you.
Oh yeah, and this is, you know, they gave me this gift of trusting me. They were crazy enough, I guess, to do it. And you know, they read the script. We sent them the script, and we met. And I don't know, I was just, I guess, trying to I don't know, to let them understand that I was, you know, really caring about what I was about to do. And you know, they were crazy enough to trust me. That's it, I guess.
They liked each other from the very beginning, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, but they met very close to the shooting, since Barbara lives in New York and Martine in Paris. So I was, I was really nervous about the fact that once they were going to meet, the chemistry was going to happen. So we arranged a dinner in Paris and it worked, and I was very much relieved, actually.
And since we are talking about cast, I would like for each one of you also to talk about your wonderful cast. Edoardo, I see you in front of me. I mean, Sophia Loren is your third work collaboration with her. Was she the perfect Madame Rosa from the very beginning?
She was the only Madame Rosa. When I read, I think one of the reasons why I also fell in love with the book is when I would read it, I would hear my mother's voice. I would hear my mother's voice saying these things, because my mother at home is very Neapolitan, is very, very full of life and irreverent and funny, but also, has this sense of drama to her. And so it was really this perfect, this perfect fit, and then, it was, the trick was to find, an actor, a young man who could play opposite her, and I knew that it was going to be whoever I would cast, it would be his first film. So I just needed to find somebody that could kind of, stand up to her when he needed to stand up to her. So, it was a process, but all of the cast, it was really a matter of surrounding my mother with characters and actors that were authentic, that were real, that were true to their character. Abril Zamora, who plays Lola, is absolutely amazing. Renato Carpentieri. And when I work with my mother, what I try to present to the world is the Sophia that I know. The Sophia not spelt with a PH, but spelt with an F, the way that she was born. And it was really a process of exploration of authenticity and truth in that sense.
And yeah, Isaac, I was wondering, I read somewhere that your father was very excited about you hiring your wonderful actress from Korea, because she's such a legend. Is that true? How did you think about her right away for the role of the grandmother?
Yeah, my dad was very excited. I think he was in general very worried about me and my future stability and success as a filmmaker, until I said I cast Yoon Jong. Then he said, "Oh, okay, you've made it. You're going to be okay." He's just, she has always been in our homes. Like she's just always on TV when we're watching Korean television. She's in so many important Korean films. And I didn't think about her as I was writing the script, because I never imagined that I could cast her. But when I was living in Korea and teaching, a mutual friend got us in touch with each other. And she's just a wonderful woman, and we hit it off really well together. And I think her big question to me was, is this coming from a real place, this film? And once she found out that it was, that was enough for her, and she wanted to do the film. My dad likes to say about her that she's one of the few people in Korea who could curse and you love her for it, and she's more beautiful because of it. And that's kind of what we needed for this role. She speaks her mind, and you just respect her all the more. And I think this film captures a lot of that spirit in her.
Yeah, I did hear in an interview, she said she felt this film was really authentic.
Yeah, I'm really grateful she feels that way. Yeah.
And I've been curious about trying Minari since.
Oh, you should come here. Yeah, we can go for some together.
Jayro, you talked about your relationship with Maria Mercedes and how your friendship also developed, and what was how important was it for you to have her in your film?
I have a lot of reason to have Maria in my film. One of the reasons is the fact that because we are a so small industry, as a movie industry in Guatemala, that we just make 3 or 4 films per year, That means that each time that I work with an actors, I had to form the actors to become an actor. And Maria, I found Maria 7 years ago in a market in a Mayan town. I was making a big casting, and I was in the market in the middle of the flower because it was our place. And I put a poster saying casting, and nobody from the location came. So I changed the poster. And I put job offer, and the whole community came to me. And Maria was one of that girls looking for a job, and I started training Maria to become an actress. And after that, we became their agents to look for another projects to Maria. And talking to my stories with her, she told me about her grandma and her mother. And she told me how her mother learned to cry in silence when the military people came to her town because the father hid her. And Maria told me, I want to make a film to cry very loud and to say to all the world how my grandma's suffering because of the war. So it was clear that Maria had to be La Llorona in my film. And you know, in the real myth of La Llorona is not able to do anything more than cry, and because it's a very misogynistic at the end legend. So I wanted to keep some little things, but change the myth. So in the first, change the fact that La Llorona is crying because a white man quit her. And I wanted to give to La Llorona another reason to cry, more relevant as a man. So the genocide was one very important. But I wanted to keep the fact that La Llorona is not able to do anything with her own hands. So in a way, La Llorona had to possess the other woman in the film to use that woman to the same reason. And I need to have that ace that Maria Mercedes has, and this force coming from the inside of her. And it was so beautiful work with her, that role, because she cut the role in two, and she, in a way, she worked with La Llorona, and in another way she worked with Alma. And it's a very difficult thing because Alma is a very cliche role for her because it's another time an indigenous woman playing a maid in a film. But for us, it was so important because Guatemalan people think that a maid is a kind of a ghost because that woman have to exist in the house, make all the things in the house, but you don't have feel her. So we justified the role like that, and Maria Mercedes really could understand that. And I want to say thank you, Maria Mercedes, because I really enjoy the work with you, and you bring me a lot.
And a different La Llorona, certainly.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thomas, you've worked with Mats before, your friends. I think you also see each other outside of the cinema. Tell us your relationship as director, actor, and how much of, and Mats was a dancer, so, and we see some pretty special steps at the end of your film. So tell us how important to have Mats in your film was.
Well, I wrote this film for Mats and for the three other guys in the movie. I like to write scripts for people I admire, not only as actors, but people who keep me curious and people I want to spend a summer with shooting a movie. He's a dear friend of mine, Mats. He lives next door, and we're in the gym together very often and stuff. You know, and it's the same thing with the others. Now, for this movie, I also needed the best actors because I challenged them a lot. They had to defend, you know, emotional journeys with a lot of details. They needed the comic bone. They needed to be vulnerable and raw, and they needed to be drunk in very specific measured levels, and they needed to dance. So there was a lot on their plate. So I really needed the best guys and the best friends, and that's what I got. I feel very lucky about that. Of course, we had a boot camp, a rehearsal before we did this movie, where we practiced character work and stuff, and then we spent a whole week trying to play drunk, basically. Drunk in specific levels per character. How is this particular character when on this particular percentage and stuff like that? Because it's pretty difficult. It's a challenge to be convincingly drunk. Not in real life, obviously, but as an actor.
Right, I can imagine. Yeah. So, but there, and you had long days and lots of. It would have been hard to really be drunk on the set, right?
Yeah, they couldn't be drunk on set because you might have them in a car in the scene after or in front of a child.
Right.
So no, they actually had to act, and so there was a lot of work behind that.
I wonder also if each of you can talk a little bit about how difficult it is, the issue of ageism and, you know, age in film. Filippo and Edoardo, especially you and Jayro in your film too, but also, and obviously Isaac with the grandma, and Thomas, you too, because it's still a midlife crisis that your characters are going through. I don't know who wants to start tackling this, but it's important. I think it's interesting and important that we see characters so wonderfully depicted on screen. It's not true that you should only be young and beautiful, right? I don't know who wants to start.
Well, since my mic is open, I have 4 characters here yearning for the youth. And I feel that we have an entire world yearning for the youth in front of us. And the sensation of being weightless and slightly drunk and in love and having life in front of you is something that we'll never forget. It's a defining thing for all of us. And in my movie, they've come to a standstill. They've lost that. And they're desperately trying to achieve being inspired again, and trying to achieve this sense of weightlessness, which is, I guess, what the end is trying very physically to show in a cathartic moment of dance. So I guess that's one of the main themes of the movie.
Watching films, company excluded, you would think that life ends at 38. You know, but you know, life in a way begins at 40 because you have enough experience to have perspective. And you know, what was really wonderful is when I offered the role to my mother, who was 85 when she made the movie, inside of me, I was like, you know, will she have the energy? Will she have the stamina? You know, making a movie is a marathon, you know. And when I saw the light in her eyes and the passion when I offered her the role, I knew that she would have the commitment, the energy, the memory, the stamina, everything. Because once you give yourself to something, it is that thing that matters. So, and it's wonderful because, you know, at 85, my mother did something that is, you know, at the height of her power, you know, and it's a beautiful testament to people that feel, you know, maybe at 70, maybe at 80, my better days are behind me. They're not. It's a question of choice. If you choose that they are, they are. If you choose that they're not, they might not be, you know.
Isaac?
Yeah, I just reflecting on the question, when I draw from my own life experiences, I just feel like the interactions I have with people of all ages within my own family, that's very precious, that dynamic of young and old together. There's a wisdom of youth and there's a wisdom of older age, and somehow both need each other. And there's a mutual dependency that we all have. So I guess it's that feeling of balance that I'm always very much interested in. How do we, as a society and people, and in our stories, reflect that kind of balance? And that's something that I hope Minari would do.
Filippo, you have to,
Well,
you show us that it's possible to be above 50 or 60 and be beautiful and caring and in love and alive, and in your film. Tell us about it.
well, yeah, that's one of the reasons I made the film, actually. This idea that I had this feeling that this representation was lacking somehow. I just, we said before, we are so much obsessed with youth and the body that has to be something perfect. And I really wanted to show, and I think the actresses do that you can be beautiful at 70 years old and charming. And really one of the first conversation I had with them both, and actually the first conversation we had with both of them, was I'm gonna shot very extreme close up and we're not gonna have much makeup. Do you agree? Do you feel you want to do that? Because I really believe that every wrinkle, it's an emotion. Every wrinkle tells a story, and I'm moved by it in my life. I mean, when I come across that, and I hope that we could share that with the audience, and that the audience would have been moved by it as well. And yeah, I think if I get to 70, I would love to be living life to its fullest still. So, and that's one thing I wanted also for the film.
Jayro, we haven't heard from you yet on this issue, but that issue is also in your film. Maybe even looking back and how Guatemala looks now at that generation. So can you talk about that? The two generations, the dictator and his wife, and La Llorona.
To me, use generation to tell the story was, in a way, in two different experiences. In a way, I wanted in my narrative tell about how Guatemalan is devised in that kind of generation progress, because all the people who are very conservative and they are continue perpetuating the discrimination against indigenous people are that generation that don't want to change. And I think they don't will change. And they really need La Llorona coming to and possess their soul to make them feel how that people suffered. And that was the concept. And after that, there is the actors behind. And Julio Diaz were 23 when we shot the film, and Margarita Kennefic, I don't remember. and so, but it wasn't just a shooting. It was 6-month training, and they were training with the other actors, and we never felt a difference in reality, and because the energy and the passion is still there, and they are big and very famous theater actors in Guatemala, and they had this kind of humility to tell me, I will put aside all my tools or all the things that I know coming from theater, and please teach me the new tools that I need to make a film. And at the end, there is a very similar work, but they were so open and so young in their way to abort that character that it was a gift.
As we are talking, we're also getting a lot of questions from our audience, which I'm seeing is quite a lot. And one of the questions that popped up is how difficult it was for each one of you to make this particular movie in the industry and in the place where you were, or if you can tell us how each of these movies got done and developed. I'm not sure. You want to start, Jayro, since you have the mic up?
Yeah, to me it was a very particular movie because I created my 3 movies as a triptych, and I wanted to talk about that 3 insults, and the last one is the communist one. But normally I wanted to make that film with 2 years to prepare the films and looking for the money to make the film. And very quick, we start having that menaces of truth. So we decide to go fast because we said maybe they can attack us, but if the film is done, at least the film will be lived. You know, like we will live the film and it is our work there and our voice there. So we decided to make the film with a very, very small budget. And my co-producer in France put the money to do the film and the cash flow, I mean. So we made a film in a year. We start in August to make the film, and next year we were in Venice presenting it. And it was so hard to work that we were shooting and editing with my producer at the same time. And I think I never made a work in so short time, but all the people were involved, you know, even actors came to the editing room to help us because they said, I remember that we had another one better, you know, and it was it was a community work at the end. I'm very happy. I want to repeat that experience.
And we hope you will soon. Who wants to tell us about how this particular movie developed for you and answer our audience?
I guess my mic's open. So
Right?
yeah, kind of like Jayro, we were very fast in the way that we had to shoot. I think A24 came on board in April of 2019, and then we had to go into production by July. So we had very few months, and then we were racing to try to finish it to hopefully premiere at Sundance. So it was all in a very short amount of time. So every day felt so rushed, and we had 2 very young kids. And in the US, we have labor laws, these are good laws that we make sure we don't work the kids too much. So we only have the kids on set for 6 hours a day, and they happen to be in almost every scene. So that made the shooting very difficult to do that in 25 days. But really, the hardest part of this film for me was it felt so emotional, and I wasn't expecting it to really go there because this was probably the most personal thing I had ever made. So that attempt to just try to keep it together and try not to let my emotions get in the way, and try not to be self-indulgent while I'm making this film, that was an unexpected challenge for me. And I just realized how exhausted I was when we finished on that last day of wrap, and I just felt the weight of the world lifting from me, and I was hugging Stephen Yun and Hanyeri, and I still remember that as maybe one of the happiest moments once we had just wrapped production. And I'm sure all the directors understand that feeling when you wrap production and you just feel this weight lifting. So yeah, that's the way it was for us.
And you shot in Oklahoma, right? But right near, not exactly in Arkansas, but very similar landscape.
Yeah.
In a Hmong farm, I heard.
That's right. The farm that we used was actually a farm that's run by Hmong immigrants, and they also had a trailer home there, and they also had their grandmother living there with them. So kind of the real life was mirroring what we were bringing to that farm. And I just kept reflecting that the making of the movie is actually a lot easier than the work that this family's doing on the actual farm, and you could just see it in the work that they do.
Yeah, and you bring it to the screen too.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thomas, how hard, or Edoardo?
No, Thomas, please, Thomas, please.
Well, thank you, Edoardo. Well, a film about drinking was not difficult to finance in my country. And in a lot of countries, it would be probably as easy as in Denmark.
Italy, so, probably.
So, France, whatever. But on a personal level, this was unlike anything else I've tried, as because my private life fell apart as I lost my daughter 4 days into shooting this film. So I guess this film kept me away from insanity. And I had a structure in my life. I had people to meet every day who embraced me and who carried me through. And we made this film for her and about her generation in her classroom. So that was the only thing that made sense. So if you ask me what was hard about it, this is beyond any comparison what was hard about this movie. Right, there you go.
Film has been embraced in the Danish market very much, right? Quite successful.
It's a massive box office hit, which doesn't surprise me with this topic in Denmark. But what has surprised me is that people embrace it abroad. It's an overwhelming sense of satisfaction, really. And it feels to me like when I watch Lee Isaac's very, very beautiful film, or the other beautiful film that I've seen, that they're very, very particular. They're not very general. They're very particular about their culture, their exact thing from their exact country, which makes them universal, ironically, which makes them very rich to other people. And it's interesting to see how when you dig into your own backyard or your own past, as Lee Isaac does, or with your own mom, as Edoardo does, it becomes grand somehow. It's a fantastic sensation, I have to say.
Thank you. Edoardo?
First of all, I'm sorry for your loss, Thomas. I had no idea, and I can't imagine. I cannot imagine what you went through. So I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Edoardo. Thank you.
So for us, it was as I said, I fell in love with this book when I was 16, and so I decided to put my efforts where my heart is. So I had no producer at the beginning. I had no distributor. I had nothing. I had me, and I had my mother, which is already a lot because she's a wonderful actress. And I decided to go ahead and option the rights by myself, and I got in touch with a wonderful screenwriter partner of mine, Ugo Kitti, and we wrote it on spec. It took us, a year and a half to 2 years to write it. And then we started the process of shopping the script around with my mother attached and this beautiful story based on this book by Romain Gary. And Palomar, this great Italian production company, came on board, and they were the first ones who really kind of believed in the project. In parallel, I had this wonderful contact in Netflix, an amazing young woman by the name of Sarah Furio, who also was tracking the project, was kind of a fan of the idea of the project. And as we finally found the money for the film, which was all equity and state subsidies from Italy and all these things, the way that you couple a very independent film together, the way that we all have to do it, and with a micro budget, very fast schedule, which was difficult because just like Lee, I had also 3 children in my movie. And and by definition in Italy, you can't work more than 10 hours. So it's not like in America where you have 12, you have 10 hours in Italy, which makes for a very civilized schedule. But you also have this burden on your shoulders, like, oh my God, I only have 10 hours a day. So you have all these things, but you know what I feel? I feel like all these obstacles end up becoming the soul of the movie, and and sometimes in a production, you throw money at a problem. And because we didn't have the money, we threw ideas at the problem. We threw concepts at the problem. And that kind of liberates, it unlocks the energy of the movie, and then, halfway through, when we started editing the movie, our friend from Netflix, Sarah Furio, came and saw the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie. and she responded to it, you know, and that allowed us, of course, you know, from this really small, micro-budgeted independent movie to then, you know, be elevated by the distribution, you know, just might of Netflix, and being able for millions of people to see this movie in a way that, you know, I could never, ever, ever have imagined.
Filippo, how hard was it? Thank you, Edoardo. Filippo, how hard was it for you to find the financing for this movie? How did you manage?
Well, you know, it's a first feature, so it's hard by definition, I guess, to finance. And so for me, it was, you know, it took 7 years from beginning to the end. And yeah, it was, and then it's a first feature with the two main characters that are 70 years old, and there's a stroke and there's sickness, and, you know, not super appealing for the financer. And the production company is a young production company, and I'm really grateful to my producers at Paprika Film, because they, and I wrote the film with my co-writer, with Marisol Bovorasmi, and me, her, and the producer. We've been, you know, we kept going, together, keeping that together for the 5 years that took the financing. And so, you know, you don't, and this is important to say, you don't make films alone. You know, it was so important for me to be with these other people that were fundamental to the project, because your energy, you know, you feed each other. And so when we got to make the film, again, as everybody, we didn't have many days of shooting. So it's crazy the way you wait for 5 years and then everything happened real fast. And, you know, you have just, you know, one day you make a mistake, and then, you know, it's a huge, and for me, being the first feature, the weight was, you know, what's at stake. It's a huge thing, because if you miss the first one, then it's difficult to have another shot at it. So, you know, I didn't sleep much, but I guess that's the story of every filmmaker. So, well, which makes it even more amazing and surprising to be here with you today. I really didn't expect that. And yeah, so that's an amazing journey, 7 years. And then the last year and a half since the movie premiered at Toronto, the life of the film was, and also the response of the reaction of the audience worldwide was so, you know, it makes sense eventually, and it makes sense in a way that you could not imagine. And that's the biggest gift that I got from the whole thing.
I was also thinking that, you know, all your films have something really, I know directors don't like to talk about message, but all your films have something so important to say to the world. And so I've been wondering if each one of you can talk about how crucial, in fact, it is the role of art in talking about world issues, especially, and now in a year, well, every year has major issues in the world, but we're just coming out of a really, we're not coming out. We are in the midst still of a very, very difficult time for the entire world. How can art and film help in this respect? Not sure, Filippo, do you want to, I see you in front of me, you're still there. So do you want to talk about the importance of art in this time?
I think, last week I was in Spain to present the film, since the cinemas are open there. And so I was there for a week, and I had the chance to meet the audience, but also I had the chance myself to go to a museum or to go to movies. And I was so it was great, you know. and I don't know, I went to it's one of my favorite museum at the Prado, or I went to see a Wong Kar-wai film, and which I saw already like 20 times, but still. And you find out, I realized, I was in the Prado, and I realized that it was probably 9 months since I last was in front of a work of art. And that was moving. I realized, how can I mean, you realize very you can touch that feeling that, that's important, maybe more than go shopping, I guess. And so I was really struck by it. And I guess, it helps to, especially in our times like the one we are living, that can, trigger so many things in our soul, empathy or knowledge, or, being at the place of somebody else, which is very useful, I guess. And yeah, so it's fundamental. And I think we can really now see that, since we are lacking it somehow.
Jayro, maybe?
Yeah, I want to talk about that question from the point of view of somebody who lives in a country without art. And at that moment, you can understand how important it is. And you can understand how important was for our government to keep up in silence the artists, I mean, and why all the artists was the first who they disappear. And all that question is so important when you start thinking about how we didn't have any support to build our industry or to have schools. We don't have art schools. And I remember that as other directors in Guatemala, I'm trying to push the state to build a cinema school or a cinema law or a fund. And when I discovered that it will be very, very slow, I went to the private industry and I asked to them to create a fund, and they told me, yeah, we want to do that because until now we never helped movies, so you made the film that you want. And I was so scary having that answer. And so in a way, my work is not only to make films, is to create icons, to give to that icons from culture a voice, because we need more people having a voice from the culture. We have enough having voice from political, and we didn't have any answer or any changement.
Yeah, I hear about the incredible work you do with your production company there. So I hope it continues. Isaac, you think, well, what's the relationship for you, and the importance of art in exploring today's world?
Yeah, I'm still shaken by what Thomas shared a while ago. I do feel like there's something about art that is a form of survival in a way, as he so truly put it. I feel as though, this is what we have to be able to express that we're people. This is our humanity. And we're in the foreign language category, but there's really something about art, about us, that's going beyond language. We're really trying to speak something much deeper than that, I feel. And so I never really thought about this film or making films that give a message, if that makes sense. And it's just more about that that deeper identity of who we are as people and what our needs are. I think that goes deeply into why we make what we make. And yeah, just great to be hearing all these directors talking about this. So thank you.
Thomas?
Yeah, art has always been incredibly important. I guess everyone knows the quote from Churchill during the war when he was asked, "Are you going to cut the cultural budgets since everything has been bombarded and we're in financial needs?" And he answered, "Then what are we fighting for?" Historically, oppression, despair, wars, starvation has led to fantastic art. So I'm very curious to see what is going to come out of this confinement, this period of death and bankruptcy and isolation of all artists. And it's strange and ironic to experience that this isolation period has created a sense of community, actually. We found this way to communicate, and suddenly everyone is communicating, which is very interesting. But I guess the films that we're presented with here have been born before. It's going to be very interesting to see what is going to be coming out of this period. I guess a lot of children will come out of it, and divorces, and alcohol usage, and suicides. But I'm very curious to see what films will come out of this.
Art, yes, absolutely. Yeah. You know, in Italy right now, I mean, I'm speaking just because I happen to have seen, there has never been so many films in production and television as right now. So it's unheard of historically.
But we need people to go back into the big screening rooms. Remember that.
Yes.
I'm optimistic about that. I heard a scientist saying that it takes a world trauma, such as a world war, to change people's habits. So unfortunately, everyone will flock back into the airplanes when this pandemic goes away, but they'll also come back into the cinemas, I think.
I'm sure, we hope they will. Edoardo, do you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I was reminded when you guys were speaking about a quote by Philo of Alexandria that says, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a great battle." And I think that what art does is hold up the mirror to our battles, and a mirror doesn't judge you. A mirror just reflects who you are. And that's the power of art. The power of art is reflecting who we are without judgment, but at the same time, allowing us to invest in the stories of others, in other people's worlds, in worlds that we might not have ever traveled to, were it not for the fact that the screen takes us there, you know. And that's one way to expand our understanding of the world, to invest in differences, to invest in humanity. So, you know, Filippo said something really interesting in the beginning. You know, he said, you know, when I walked back into the museum, you know, he was struck, you know, and really what he was saying, it almost made me feel like it was like him eating for the first time, you know, because art becomes food, art becomes water, you know, and it's an essential ingredient for our blood, really, for our lives.
Thank you. We do have several questions from the audience, and one of them, which I'm just reading now, and Edoardo, you are in front of me now with your mic. What genre would you like to tackle in your next film, or what do you have a future or upcoming project? There seems to be, rightly so, a lot of curiosity about this after these wonderful films. What's next?
What's next? I don't know, because it's a process of meditation. You know, the worst thing to do is to jump in another movie after you feel heady because of the success of something. So I think it's very important to kind of take a moment, take a beat, let the dust settle, not do something to recreate this response, but do something that really speaks to me and speaks to my heart, and hopefully then be able to translate that to the audience. One day in my life, I will direct a musical. Yeah. One day I will do it. It might not be now, it might not be in 10 years, but one day I will direct a musical. I just, the music, it just, the whole energy of it. Music is such a big part of my life. You know, my maternal grandmother was a pianist. My brother is an orchestra conductor. I've been steeped into music all my life, and it would just be a great, great dream. I don't think it's going to be my next, because I might not have the courage for that. But one day it will absolutely happen.
Okay, noted. Thomas? Another genre, a genre that you would like to
dancer. I have a dancer for Edoardo. I don't know how well he sings though, but he can definitely dance. Actually, I want to pick up on what Edoardo said about settling down after the success and stuff. I once received an advice from a Swedish director, Ingmar Bergman, who said, always decide your next movie before the premiere of your existing movie. And I was like, what's that about? He said, two things can happen. One is you fail and you'll be perplexed and you'll try to rescue your career and be very aware of yourself. Even worse, you can have a success. It'll paralyze you. Huh. And I said, well, Ingmar, I'll be very busy. If I decide before my premiere, I'll be in sound or in mix or in editing. He said, exactly. That's where there's very short from the heart to the hand. You make a snappy, fast decision, and it'll probably be more precise than the one you do later. That was his point on this. So I decided already, and I'm working on a series that I'm a Danish series, and I don't know the genre. I don't know my genres ever. I always find out when I see it on the shelf in the DVD store.
The genre, you mean?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Isaac?
Yeah, I'm working on love stories. That's where this coronavirus led me. I just wanted love stories. I think that's what I need in my life. So yeah, exploring that more.
Jayro?
Oh, I never consider myself as a filmmaker. I consider myself as a tell story before a filmmaker. So I'm not purist with genre, and I really want to play with different kind of languages in movies. So I'm really love to make a love story or a comedy, black comedy, and I'm trying to develop some different projects. But as Thomas say, I decide to make my next story. I always decide by concepts, like right now I want to use that concept, and right now I want to talk about how we are preparing our new generations. And so I'm very interested to look for in the childless time and in the lesson that we were given to the new generation. So I'm focused on that.
Filippo?
Well, I don't know exactly, so I guess it's too late to follow this wonderful Bergman advice. But I'll keep that in mind. It sounds very good.
We all feel guilty now that we're not following Bergman's advice. We all feel guilty and foolish that we're not following.
Definitely. So thanks, Thomas. I'll keep that in mind. It's a wonderful advice. Too late. But yeah, I guess it's Edoardo said to let this dust settle, and it's something that I'm trying to do now also, especially and also there's one thing that I'm thinking about. What happened the last year and a half was so striking, and I kind of think that even if you are not taking any social issue or anything, I guess it's important to I see that this way, that my work resonate with the things that we are living, and try to, and so first of all, I should understand what we are living. And so right now I'm really just trying to understand how I feel, how things play out, what we are facing, the experience, and try to understand it and to let that settle, and to try to come up with something that resonate with this experience, even though, I'm not thinking about doing anything about the pandemic or whatsoever, not at all. Just it's a matter of feelings, and for sure it's going to be something very different, since I really like this thing with filmmaking, that you can live more than one life, and every film is a journey, and every film will take you in different places, meeting different people, and kind of a tool for knowledge, but knowledge of the feelings or what life is or something like this. So I'm looking forward, and I will take my time anyway, trying to make sure about what I'm doing as much as I can.
A couple of questions from the audience that I think can be combined. One is, what advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers? And another that just popped up says, many film students are now trying to make Zoom films, editing locations into narratives that are chosen, to fit in Zoom. Would you ever experiment with the idea? I'm wondering if you can talk about that, the advice for filmmakers and these new possible ways of making films via Zoom. We see it all over, right? Filippo, you're there. You want to, have you thought about it?
Zoom, no, I never thought about it, even though I'm spending a lot of my time on Zoom now. It has become one of the things you do in life. No, but I never thought about it. But I mean, why not? I think every tool is good if you find the right way to use it, I guess. But I never thought about it. Advice, I guess I'm the less experienced in here in the list, so I don't know. And advice, I mean, I think maybe filmmaking is about cooperation. It's not the work of just one person, and that's important, I think, to be said. So I guess being surrounded by the right people and people that are as passionate as you are for what you do, I guess that's very, very important, because you're not making anything alone. And so that's very important, I guess.
Thank you. Jayro?
Oh, I share the same thing with Filippo about Zoom. If somebody find a way to use it, I'm personally, I consider that we have a kind of a Bluetooth as a human, and there is a lot of things that we didn't need any language to share with the other, and when we are together, it works better. So I'm really appreciate the fact that in making a film we can be a group and we can live together and share together and be in presence. So if somebody finds the good way to work like that, please make us assume to explain that. And in another way, to the new filmmakers, I want to tell to the new filmmakers who are doing the same work that a lot of Latin American people are doing without really schools and without budget to work. And I think they have to understand that it's very important to do. And it's not very important to show all that we did. Sometimes we just did a film because we were training, and we have to be smart with some kind of works, because in industry as mine, sometimes we show all that we did just because we are proud about that fact. And each film is a mark, and it's very complicated after a film who is not very well finished. And it's not because they are not talented, it's because the situation that we work change the mind of the people who watch our previous films. So just keep it in mind, because I know a lot of very talented filmmakers who show some little works and they have a lot of problems to continue right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Isaac, suggestions, advice for filmmakers and the notion of Zoom?
Sure. I guess the advice I tend to give is from a mistake I myself made, to not let filmmaking be all that you have in life, to not let that be your only thing in life. And I think for me, it was important to learn that you really anchor yourself in something and you live life fully. And from that, you can actually tell better stories. And that's been important for me to figure out. In terms of Zoom, I'm kind of partial against it, to be honest. I would tell people, I hate this, to be honest. I wish I could be in the same room with these guys and with you, Silvia. I think that person-to-person interaction is so important that I'd say if the world is giving us Zoom, try to give the world something else. That would be my thought. Try to rebel against this and, try to be with other people somehow in your movie making, if it's possible, if you can do it safely. So that would be my thought.
Well, thank you. Thomas?
Well, I guess the creative process, or actually a general process of living is about forgetting yourself. That's very important. As an actor, to be in the moment, you have to forget about who you are. And it goes for all of us. That's the happiest moment you can achieve, when you forget about yourself. So if you find yourself discussing with yourself, what kind of director am I? What kind of stories would be great to tell right now? What would be great for my career? Know that this is a waste of time. Turn the camera away from yourself, and that way, stay curious about the world around you and get your head out of your bum. That would be my advice.
I hope everybody's listening. Edoardo?
You know, have no plan B. No plan B. This has to become a question of life and death. It has to be the thing that you were born to do and that you will die wanting to do. And when your time comes, it will come. It will come. Also, you know, find people that support you for who you are, that allow you to make the films that you want to make, that don't have some kind of other agenda. You know, I was very lucky to meet the people at Palomar, Carlo Di Esposti, Nicola Serra, who really allowed me to make the movie that I wanted to make without any kind of, guardrails in that sense. You know, that's very, very, very important. And I do believe, when Lee said what he said, he's so right. You know, don't make film your world. It's a means to an end, but it's not the end. Use the camera not as the universe you live in, but as the pen you write with. That's very important, because films are not about films. Films are about life, about choices, about humans, about our condition. And we cannot talk about our condition if we're stuck in a room. We have to open the windows, we have to open the door, we have to walk out there, we have to risk, we have to taste, we have to live, right? And dovetailed into that, that's why doing a movie on Zoom would be the last thing that I would ever do in my whole entire life, because we have to clam our computer, walk out the door, and experience things. When we'll be able to.
And in the meantime, we are all watching your wonderful films, hoping that we can actually see them in a cinema together, because, and each one of them is so beautifully shot, so beautifully acted, that they are never like this year. I really wish I was in watching them together on a big screen, but hopefully soon. So thank you so much. I know, Gwen, we are come to the end of our time together. Gwen is going to show up now. I wanted to thank you all for being here with us. Gwen?
Thank you so much, Jayro, Edoardo, Lee, Isaac, Thomas, Filippo, for being with us today. Thank you, Silvia, for leading this conversation. Thank you, the audience, for zooming in. Don't forget to watch the Golden Globes tomorrow. And please check our website, sign up for our e-blast so that you can receive information about what's coming up at the American Cinematheque. And again, thank you so much, everyone. It was a terrific conversation.